Well, I'd like to keep adding new trees to this channel as I find them. And I was up on this trail a few months ago and started finding a northern maple, a maple that's more common as you go north in the Appalachian Mountains and north into New England and into Canada. It's also found in the central and southern Appalachians, but only in certain habitats that have remained cool relative to the surroundings. And that's true with this Hubbard River. This is the Hubbard River. I'm on the Hubbard River Trail. This is in the western part of Hampden County, Massachusetts. We're not even a mile from the Connecticut border. And this Hubbard River is a trout stream, and it flows into the Barkhamsted Reservoir, which provides water for Greater Hartford, Connecticut. So nice and clean and cool and undeveloped in this watershed here. And relatively cool compared to the upper slopes on this ravine. A great place to find a northern visitor near the southern edge of its range. And that's our mountain maple, which usually remains in the understory, usually remains where it can get some sun, and usually remains where it can avoid being browsed on by moose and by deer. So along this stream side, I started finding some a few months ago while out hiking. And there's also maple leaf viburnum, red maple, striped maple, and sugar maple for us to compare its foliage with and its fruits with as we hike today. This Hubbard River drops about 600 feet between the start of the trail to my northwest through a series of flumes and small waterfalls that are quite scenic, and it's a great place to study this tree and enjoy the scenery at the same time. Matter of fact, we've got one right across the stream here, kind of arching towards the water, and growing right above it is a yellow birch. So it's growing towards me and away from the shade of that yellow birch to where it can get some sun. So unlike the striped maple, which grows in the understory as well, the mountain maple is always seeking out sun where it can. It often grows on ledges that might have less shade and also less likely to get browsed on when it's on a ledge. And it appears to me that where it's growing along this stream, it's also in a place where it'd be hard for the herbivores to get to it. Let's keep hiking. We're going to study the mountain maple plus anything else that it might resemble along this trail. And it sure didn't take me long to start finding some great examples for teaching along this stream. You've got 3 species of maple right here. Just a stone's throw from that last video. Here's the fruits of our striped maple. And we got a little spider hanging out here too. And boy, look how fine those little teeth are along that margin. And look how much that leaf looks like a goosefoot. Or, you know, I was at a museum yesterday where they showed dinosaur footprints. And this has the same shape as a dinosaur footprint, or at least some of the dinosaurs with 3 toes. Although it can get 5, often it only looks like 3, depending on how closely you look. So our goosefoot or striped maple, with its either green and black or brown and black striped bark, depending on the tree, grows in the understory just like our mountain maple that we're going to study. It's right across the stream here, but the teeth on the edge of this striped maple are very fine. They look like those you'd find on a hacksaw. For a basic comparison, we've got some red maple growing here with a really rough, torn appearance. It looks like a piece of paper that was torn hastily, and all kinds of jagged edges that are not uniform at all. And it often has a red petiole, and it always has red buds in the winter time as spring comes along. Well, this guy was growing really fast in full sun here, this red maple. Look at the size of these leaves. They're as big as that goosefoot maple and really bright red. I'm going to do a little rock hopping here. There's a nice mountain maple right across the stream here that we can compare these with. And a couple well-placed boulders. Made it easy to cross the Hubbard River here, today at least. The water was up quite a bit a few days ago after a really dry summer. Plenty of rain the last couple weeks, and the wetlands that hold water to feed these streams have been recharged, and the water's starting to seep out of the bogs and swamps that fill the depressions in much of this area. We got some real well-placed trees here. We got our mountain maple right here. And this maple has been on this channel before, but not as with its own video set. It was used to compare with the striped maple last summer, and I found some up on Mount Monadnock a few weeks ago as well. So let's get these guys in full sun here. And there we go. Look at the texture of that leaf. The cells and the veins are three-dimensional. It really looks like they're depressed into the surface of the leaf, and as far as I can tell, they are. And look at the edge of that leaf. Those teeth are much bigger than those of the straight maple. Even though it almost has that goosefoot or dinosaur foot appearance, the teeth are 3 or 4 times larger than that of the goosefoot or striped maple. Probably about an 1/8 inch in size, and evenly spaced. So there's no big surprises along this margin. It doesn't have that torn look that the red maple has. And look how pretty these are when they're getting illuminated by this late summer sun. And I often tell people March and September are the best months for photography, because you still have plenty of sun in September, but it's only half the angle, or it's lost half of its azimuth by September. So it's lost 23 degrees of height, and it doesn't overexpose your subject as easily as it does in June and July. And March the same way, but for the other reason. Sometimes the winters are dreary and cloudy, and it's hard to get good lighting, but boy, by mid-March, the days are getting brighter, and you get some great videos and photographs those months too. So let's enjoy the view of this. I got one here about the size of my index finger, one here a little bigger, but on average smaller than the leaves of the straight maple right behind it. The goosefoot maple has definitely got the biggest leaves of all the maples I've put on this channel. I didn't do much with black maple when I was first starting this channel, but I probably should have, because there was a lot of it growing in the Ohio Valley. And honestly, in the wintertime, you really can't tell it from the sugar maple, but in the summer you can. So that may have to get put on my back burner for now till I can get back in an area where there's a lot of black maple. But black maple does get leaves as big as this striped maple. This striped maple leaves are 2 or 3 times the size of those of the mountain maple growing right next to it. And the bark of this mountain maple, I think, could be easily confused with the bark of the other maples. It's an even brown appearance. It has a couple little dimples on it that I don't recall seeing on the other maples. So if I do a winter study of these maples, which I could, that might be a good way to tell it apart. The new growth is quite green, and that is not the case with the red maple or the sugar maple. It is the case with the box elder, which has much different leaves than this mountain maple, and does not normally grow in the same part of the doesn't have the same habitat, or I don't believe the ranges would overlap very much. So let's keep hiking. This is a great place to hike. We've got plenty of time. We're going to be looking for more maples. I know I saw a maple leaf viburnum back here a few months ago. We'll compare that with these maples that are found in the understory and the seedlings of the other maples, because the maple leaf viburnum could easily fool people. And one understory plant that's a shrub, usually not more than shoulder high, often just knee high or waist high. It's out here to throw us a curveball is this maple leaf viburnum, which has leaves that are very similar to some of our pointy toothed maples, like the mountain maple and the red maple. Got one right here. It's easy to tell from the other ones when it has its flowers or fruits. This one does not, but it does have that 3 lobes with pointy teeth. And those pointy teeth are evenly spaced, just like those of the mountain maple. I'd say on average the leaf is quite a bit smaller than that of the mountain maple. And I do have a mountain maple leaf from right up the trail here to do a direct comparison with. So the mountain maple leaf is on your left with the evenly spaced teeth. But the teeth tend to have a nice, gentle, delicate, elegant looking curve that comes to a point. And this mountain maple leaf viburnum is a little more ordinary. Just a V-shaped tooth. Doesn't have that sweeping curve that comes to a point. So the maple leaf viburnum is on the bottom of the screen now, and the mountain maple leaf is on the top of the screen. Also, this maple leaf viburnum, at least this particular plant, has a lot of color to the veins. It's a purplish color. And this mountain maple does not. So a little bit of a curveball. And just for another comparison, you know, the red maple is one of the most common trees in the entire eastern half of the United States. And it could easily be confused with our maple leaf viburnum on the right and our red maple on the left. But again, that red maple has a real jagged appearance, and none of those little saw teeth along the edge are the same. They're all a different size, different length, and none are the same. So that's how we can tell those 3 apart. I don't think you could confuse the goosefoot or striped maple with this maple leaf viburnum, and I don't believe you could confuse the sugar maple with it as well. They just don't look that much alike. And here we go. We do have a few fruits on this. So none of our maple trees will get a berry-like fruit. So when you do find the fruits on these maple leaf viburnums in the late summer, it's easy to make sure that you're not looking at a maple itself. We've got a real good example of the seeds or fruits of this mountain maple within reach of the trail. I can't say they're the largest maple seeds I've ever seen. Matter of fact, I think they're some of the smallest. They're no bigger than my thumbnail there, each side of the wings. So if you look at the 2 wings there, a seed on each side. It's no bigger than my thumbnail on this tree. The bottom of the wing, or where the seed itself is dented in, unlike some of the other maples. And the angle that the wings make is less than 90 degrees. So the wings are kind of folded up against each other, as opposed to some of the broader shaped wings that you see on the other maples. And we'll look at the other maples if we can find the seeds today. I know I can find striped maple seeds here. The red maple and sugar maple may not be easy to find this late in the season. Here's the fruits of our striped maple. And plenty of waterfalls as you ascend this hollow of the Hubbard River here, or gorge. And these striped maple and mountain maple leaves are gorging on the sunlight today. Mountain maple on the left, excuse me, striped maple on the left with that obvious dinosaur foot or goose foot appearance. And the evenly toothed edge of our mountain maple with that light green appearance on that new growth. As a matter of fact, got one right here that just got started, probably from the seeds from that tree. And just about a foot high here, or 2 feet high maybe. Here's the bottom, and here's the top, about knee high. With that evenly toothed edge, and part of it's missing. At the end of the growing season, there's hard to find a leaf that's in perfect condition. A lot of things prey on them, insects and little spots from different tree diseases. And we're going to talk about trees that are preferred browse of white-tailed deer. Let's take a look at this Canadian yew, which is a shrub, but often grows in places that are really rocky and hard for the deer to get to. We might as well just take a look at it, because I'll tell you what, you could easily confuse the yew, Y-O-U, could easily confuse the yew, Y-E-W, with a balsam fir. It has opposite branching right here, flat needles about the size of the balsam fir. They don't have the same scent as the balsam fir, but unlike the balsam fir, it does not have noticeable white lines on the back. So you could confuse yew with balsam fir, or even with eastern hemlock. We've got some diseased eastern hemlock right here above our view here as well. And as I mentioned earlier, this is often in the understory, this mountain maple. It often grows in clumps. And when one branch dies off, 10 more will come up to take its place. Boy, you can really see that green new growth on this guy here. I'm not sure if it's only this year's growth that's green, or if it stays green for several seasons. From what I can tell, it probably does go from all green to slightly green, blotchy green, as the tree gets slightly older, or the branch gets slightly older. And the northern approach to the trail along the Hubbard River is actually an old paved road. The moss is kind of growing over it. Eventually this won't look like a paved road if it gets left alone long enough, but it leads to the Hubbard River Trail from the north. Found a great place to compare all the maples that I mentioned today, with the exception of the maple leaf viburnum. And here's our sugar maple. We haven't shown this yet today. Doesn't have a real close appearance to the striped maple, mountain maple, or red maple, but let's take a look at it, because it's a pretty common tree that becomes very large at times. Rounded notches between those lobes, and even if there's a small lobe off the main lobe, it's rounded. So that's an easy giveaway. Right there. Right next to it, literally right next to it, is the evenly toothed edge of our striped maple leaf, with these small teeth no more than a 1/16 inch long, maybe an 1/8 inch long, and quite sharp at the end. And as I mentioned before, they can be quite large, much bigger than your hand, where they're getting plenty of sun. Got the rough torn edge of our red maple right here, so none of these little notches and lobes are the same. They're all a different length, and where they meet, it's at a sharp angle, a V-shaped angle. And right next to it, for perfect comparison, is the subject of today's lesson, our mountain maple leaf. Again, it has that three-dimensional look. So it looks like the leaf is sticking out, and it creates shadows along the veins. Quite pretty, good for taking photos. And again, it has evenly spaced teeth that are much larger than those of the striped maple and much more evenly sized than those of the red maple. And the scenic rewards continue as you go up this Hubbard River Trail. Lots of flumes up here. There's no real waterfalls where it comes straight down into a deep pool. More rock slides, water slides, flumes, smaller waterfalls, but very interesting. A good place to cool off on a hot day. Plenty of deep pools here where you could wait around and cool off. And plenty of open ledge here where you could get some sun as well. So we'll put the wraps on this study of the summer or growing season appearance of the mountain maple. And I'm going to make a point of getting out this winter, and we'll look at all these maples with their winter appearance and really learn how to tell them apart for the 6 months of the year when they're not in leaf.